I want you to think about someone you know. Smart, kind, hard-working. The kind of person who shows up for everyone, forgives quickly, gives endlessly. The kind of person you'd call a good human being. Now tell me, why does that person keep getting used? 3 years ago, I watched someone I respected deeply sit across from me and say something I'll never forget. He said, "I did everything right. I was patient. I was loyal. I never raised my voice, and they still walked all over me." He wasn't weak. He was predictable. And in the game of power, predictable is the most dangerous thing you can be. Niccolò Machiavelli spent his entire life studying why good people get destroyed by people who don't deserve them. And he found one answer that cuts through everything. It wasn't their kindness that destroyed them. It was the absence of a price. They made themselves too easy, too available, too forgiving, too safe to disrespect. Today I'm going to show you 7 behaviors that you must never tolerate. Not from strangers, not from friends, not from the people who claim they love you. But I'm not going to tell you these people are bad. I'm going to show you the psychology behind why these behaviors exist in your life, and more importantly, why you keep allowing them. Once you see this, you cannot unsee it. Before we begin, I want you to drop this in the comments right now. Write, "I will no longer be easy to use." Say it like you mean it, because after this video, you will. 1. You did not tolerate disrespect. Let me ask you something. Think about the first time someone disrespected you in a relationship. A cutting comment, a dismissive gesture. The moment they interrupted you mid-sentence like your words meant nothing. What did you do? If you're honest, you probably let it go. You told yourself it wasn't a big deal. You thought being the bigger person meant staying quiet. It happened again, didn't it? Here is what Machiavelli understood that most people spend their entire lives refusing to accept. Disrespect does not begin with them. It begins the moment you allow it to exist without a cost. The first time someone tests a boundary and nothing happens, they don't think you're kind. They don't think you're mature. They think you're safe. And safe means they can do it again. People do not consciously decide to disrespect you. They test small violations first. A dismissive tone, a broken commitment, a joke at your expense. They watch your response. If nothing changes, if you stay warm, available, and forgiving, they have their answer. They know exactly how far they can go, and they will go further. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must never allow himself to be held in contempt, not because of pride, but because contempt, once it takes root, spreads. When one person sees they can treat you without consequence, everyone around them learns the same lesson. Disrespect is not a private event. It is a signal broadcast to everyone watching. Think about that. The person who interrupts you in meetings, the family member who makes jokes at your expense, the partner who dismisses your feelings like inconvenient noise. They are not just telling you that you don't matter. They are showing everyone else in the room what the rules are when it comes to you. And you taught them those rules, not with words, but with your silence, with every moment you chose to keep the peace instead of holding the line. Here is the shift Machiavelli demands. Stop asking why they disrespect you. Start asking what it costs them to do it. If the answer is nothing, you have your problem. Most people believe the solution is to explain, to say, "When you speak to me that way, it hurts." But with people who are testing you, explanation is not the solution. Explanation is information. You are handing them a manual on how to manage you. You are telling them exactly what bothers you, how to reset the situation, and what they can do again after you've forgiven them. Machiavelli never advised confrontation. He advised consequence, quiet, consistent, or undeniable consequence. When someone disrespects you, the most powerful response is not an argument. It is a shift in access. They lose something, your time, your warmth, your presence, not with anger, not with a speech, just a calm, visible withdrawal of what they were taking for granted. Anger gives people something to argue against. Withdrawal gives them nothing. It creates a silence they have to fill. And in that silence, they start to understand what they are losing. Respect is not something you earn by being impressive. Admiration is earned. Respect is different. Respect is what happens when people understand, consciously or not, that crossing you has consequences. The most respected people in your life were not necessarily the smartest or most successful. They were the ones where some part of you understood instinctively. Do not go there. That instinct was built by pattern, by watching what happened to people who did cross them. Every time you hold a standard, you build it. Every time someone loses access to you because of how they treated you, you build it. Slowly, quietly, the people in your life begin to calibrate differently around you. Not because you frightened them, because they learned. Machiavelli once said, "Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey present necessities that one who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. People will treat you exactly as you allow. No better, no worse. Stop being free. Drop this in the comments. Disrespecting me is no longer free." 2. Machiavelli never allowed one person to hold what he could not live without. Manipulation is not about strength. This is the part nobody tells you. The person manipulating you is not stronger than you, not smarter, not more capable. They are simply more aware of one thing, what you cannot afford to lose, and they use that one thing against you every single time. Think about every guilt trip you have ever received. Every, "after everything I have done for you." Every, "if you really loved me, you would." Every time someone made you feel irrational for having a boundary. What was the actual mechanism underneath all of it? They found what you needed from them, and they held it just slightly out of reach until you bent. That is the entire technology of manipulation. It is not sophisticated, it is leverage, and leverage only works when you have something to lose. Machiavelli wrote that a wise ruler must never place himself in a position where his survival depends on the goodwill of any single person. Not because people are evil, but because when circumstances change, goodwill changes with them. The person who holds your greatest need holds your greatest vulnerability. And vulnerability in the wrong hands is an open door. So let me ask you something direct. What do the people who manipulate you hold that you cannot seem to let go of? For some it is love, the need to be chosen, accepted, seen as enough by a specific person. For others it is approval, the need to be seen as a good son, a good daughter, a good friend. For others it is security. When someone holds any of these, they do not even need to threaten directly. The implied possibility of withdrawal is enough to shape every decision you make. Recognize what they hold, because that is not their power. That is your wound. Machiavelli's answer is not to remove your needs. It is to never allow any single person to be the exclusive supplier of what you need. When you have multiple sources of love, approval, and security, no single person's withdrawal becomes catastrophic. No one becomes your only option. And when no one is your only option, no one has leverage. This is not cynicism. This is architecture. Now, the deepest form of manipulation, the one that does not feel like manipulation at all, gaslighting. You remember something clearly. They tell you it did not happen that way. You feel something strongly. They tell you you are too sensitive. You raise a concern. They tell you you are imagining things. And slowly you stop trusting your own perception. You start checking your reality with the very person who is distorting it. The moment you stop trusting yourself, you have to trust them. And the moment you have to trust them, they control everything. The antidote is simple. Write things down, date them, trust the record. Not the version that emerges after a circular conversation where somehow everything became your fault. The version you captured in the moment, when your perception was still intact. Your reality does not require their validation. Here is what Machiavelli would say most clearly. You are not manipulated because you are naive. You are manipulated because you are attached. Specifically attached to keeping the relationship intact, in a form where they still see you as good, loyal, and reasonable. Manipulators know this. They use your commitment to the relationship as the weapon they turn against you. The moment you become genuinely willing to let the relationship change, genuinely willing to lose their approval, genuinely capable of walking away, the manipulation stops working. Not because they stopped trying, because you stopped being a viable target. Detachment is not coldness. Detachment means you care correctly, about yourself first. From that foundation, you engage with others. That is very different from desperately needing them to stay, to approve, to choose you. When you stop needing something from someone that only they can give, they lose the mechanism entirely. Machiavelli said, "The one who adapts his policy to the times prospers." The time has changed, and so have you. Drop this in the comments. What I need, I will build for myself. 3. The warden built the prison. But you learn to lock the door yourself. This one is going to be uncomfortable, not because it is dark, because it is accurate. Emotional abuse does not work the way most people think it works. People imagine it as a storm, loud, obvious, undeniable. Something you can point to and say, "That is wrong, that is abuse, I am leaving." But the kind that actually destroys people does not look like a storm. It looks like weather, constant, shifting, unpredictable. Some days warm, some days freezing. Never stable enough to plan around. Never consistent enough to call out clearly. And that inconsistency is not a flaw in the design. It is the design. Here is the mechanism. When someone hurts you and then repairs the relationship, your brain does not file that experience as danger. It files it as relief. The repair feels good. The warmth after the cold feels earned. The kindness after the cruelty feels precious in a way it never would if there had been no cruelty. This is not a personal weakness. This is behavioral conditioning, the same process used to train behavior in animals. Unpredictable reward after distress creates the strongest attachment. This was documented by behavioral scientists decades ago. And emotional abusers, whether they know it consciously or not, operate by exactly this principle. They hurt you, then they love you, then they hurt you again, and the cycle trains you to chase the love rather than question the hurt. Over time, something more insidious happens. You stop waiting for them to criticize you. You start doing it yourself. You begin filtering your words before you speak, anticipating the reaction. You start shrinking your needs before expressing them, because the expression itself became a source of pain. You learn to apologize for things that were not your fault, because apologizing became the fastest way to restore peace. They no longer need to control you. You control yourself on their behalf. That is the full completion of the process. Machiavelli observed that the most effective rulers never needed to constantly exert force. Once the population had internalized the cost of dissent, they governed themselves. The force became internal. The warden lived inside the prisoner. Ask yourself honestly, how much of the way you move through the world right now has been shaped by someone else's reactions to you? How many things do you not say, not ask for, not allow yourself to feel? Because at some point those things created pain in a relationship you were trying to hold together. If the list is long, that is not a character flaw. That is evidence of how long you have been living inside someone else's weather. Here is the test that cuts through everything. When you are with this person, do you feel like the best version of yourself, or do you feel like a managed version of yourself? There is a profound difference. The best version of you is expansive, curious, willing to take up space. The managed version is careful, quiet, always calculating the distance between expression and safety. Love makes people expand. Control makes people contract. If you have been contracting for years, you may have forgotten what it feels like to expand. This is not something that heals through conversation with the person who caused it. Understanding the mechanism does not repair the wound. Distance does, time does, rebuilding trust in your own perceptions does. Carl Jung wrote that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The conditioning that happened to you was made unconscious by repetition. Bringing it back into the light, naming it, seeing it for what it is, that is where the reversal begins. But Machiavelli adds something Jung does not. Seeing clearly is not enough. You must act on what you see. A prince who understands the danger of his position but does nothing about it has not gained wisdom. He has simply gained the awareness of his own destruction. Understanding that you were conditioned is the beginning. Changing the conditions is the work. That means changing what you allow in your environment, changing what kind of access people have to your inner life, changing the way you respond when someone tries to make you feel small, not with confrontation, not necessarily with explanation, but with a quiet, firm refusal to continue living in that weather. Drop this in the comments. I will only stay where I grow. 4. Machiavelli was never betrayed twice, because he never mistook loyalty. Every person who has ever been betrayed asks the same question. How did I not see it coming? And the honest answer, the one that actually helps you, is not about the other person at all. It is about the structure of the relationship. What was in place to make betrayal costly? What consequence existed that would have made someone think twice? What was the architecture that should have protected you? If your answer is trust, then you have found the problem. Trust is not structure. Trust is a feeling. And feelings do not hold when circumstances change, when temptation appears, when someone else offers a better deal. This is not cynicism. This is 500 years of political philosophy, historical observation, and documented human behavior pointing to one conclusion. Machiavelli wrote that it is much safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Most people misread this as brutality. It is not. It is a statement about dependency. When people love you, their loyalty depends on their emotion, which fluctuates. When people have something to lose by crossing you, their loyalty depends on a calculation, which is far more stable. Now translate that to your personal life. The friend who shared your secret did not wake up one morning deciding to hurt you. They were in a social situation where sharing was easier than keeping confidence, and where the cost of betrayal seemed lower than the cost of silence in that moment. The cost calculation shifted, and there was nothing in the structure of your relationship to stop that shift. from happening. This is not an excuse for what they did. It is an explanation of how to prevent it in the future. After betrayal, most people do one of two things. They close off entirely, trusting no one. Or they give the person another chance, believing the apology, watching the same pattern repeat. Both responses are reactions. Neither is strategy. Machiavelli's approach is different. He would restructure. Forgiveness is a decision you make for your own peace. It releases the resentment that would otherwise poison you. But forgiveness is not reconstruction. Reconstruction means rebuilding the relationship on different terms. Lower access, more guarded information, smaller dependency, not as punishment, as architecture. Let me break down what this actually looks like. After someone betrays your information, they lose access to future information. Not because you are punishing them, because the evidence says they cannot be a safe container for what you share. That is not anger. That is logic. After someone fails to stand with you when it mattered, they lose their position in your inner circle. Not with a confrontation, with a quiet repositioning. You stop expecting from them what they have already demonstrated they cannot provide. After someone breaks a commitment and offers a reason, you listen to the reason once. If the pattern repeats, the reason becomes irrelevant. Because a pattern is not a mistake, a pattern is information. This is what Machiavelli means when he writes about understanding human nature without illusion. Not hating people, not suspecting everyone, just seeing clearly without the distortion of what you hope they will become. Here is the part that might sting. Sometimes we keep trusting people who have already shown us who they are because the alternative requires us to grieve the relationship we thought we had, to grieve the version of that person we believed in, to accept that the friendship, the family bond, the partnership we constructed in our minds was partly a story we were telling ourselves. That grief is real. It deserves to be felt. But Machiavelli would say, feel it, and then move. Do not let loyalty to the story override the evidence of reality. A man who is used to acting in one way never changes. He must come to ruin when the times, in changing, no longer are in harmony with his ways. The person who continues trusting in the old way after the evidence has spoken is not the loyal one. They are the one who chose comfort over clarity. And clarity is the only thing that protects you from the next betrayal. Protect your information, structure your access, grieve what you need to grieve, then rebuild on ground that can actually hold you. 5. Machiavelli chose his circle like he chose his weapons, with precision. Let me tell you what actually happens when you spend enough time around someone who sees the world as a dark, limited, threatening place. You start to see it that way too. Not because they convinced you, not because you thought about it and agreed, but because the human brain, at the most basic neurological level, is built to synchronize with the emotional states of the people around it. This is mirror neuron activity. This is hundreds of thousands of years of evolutionary design that kept our ancestors alive by making them feel what the people near them felt. It is not a weakness, it is biology. But in your modern relationships, it can be turned against you. Every time you hear, "That's impossible," something happens below the level of conscious thought. Your brain files it as data. Over repeated exposure, that data shapes your sense of what is realistic, what is possible, what people like you can achieve. The limits of the people around you become the walls of your imagination. And the most terrifying part is that by the time this happens, it feels like your own thinking. You stopped needing them to say it. You started saying it yourself. That is not negativity influencing you. That is a full installation. Machiavelli said the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. He did not say this as a social judgment. He said it as a strategic observation. Your environment shapes your decisions. Your decisions shape your outcomes. Your outcomes shape who you become. Therefore, your environment shapes who you become. And the people in your environment are the most powerful variable within it. This is why choosing your circle is not a social preference. It is a strategic decision of the highest order. Think about the last time you shared an idea with someone, and they immediately told you why it would not work. Not to protect you. Not because they had relevant expertise. Just reflexively, automatically, because that is how they process everything, through the filter of what cannot be done. Did you notice what happened to the idea after that conversation? It got smaller. The energy around it dimmed. You started to see the obstacles instead of the path. And you might have told yourself that you were just being realistic, but you were not being realistic. You were being infected. Now think about a time you shared the same type of idea with someone who leaned forward and asked, "How would that work?" Not promising it would succeed, not pretending the challenges did not exist, but approaching it with curiosity instead of reflexive limitation. The idea grew in that conversation. Energy came back into it. You left that exchange with more clarity, more momentum, more belief in the possibility. Same idea. Two completely different outcomes, based entirely on whose mental environment you stepped into. This is the power of who you allow close access to. There are 3 levels at which this contamination works, and most people only see the first one. The first level is obvious. What people say to you directly. The criticism, the doubt, the "that's not realistic" commentary. The second level is subtler, the emotional atmosphere they create. Some people drain a room without saying a single negative word. They carry a low-grade heaviness, a permanent undercurrent of complaint and resentment that slowly depletes everyone around them. The third level is invisible until you look for it. The beliefs they hold about the world that they never explicitly state, but that saturate every interaction. That people cannot be trusted. That success requires luck you don't have. That things rarely work out. That you should be grateful for what you have and stop wanting more. This third level is the most damaging, because it does not come as a statement you can argue with. It comes as an atmosphere you absorb. Machiavelli did not tolerate this in his circles. He understood that the quality of counsel surrounding a ruler was a direct expression of the ruler's own judgment. To tolerate poor counsel was to announce poor judgment. To allow negative, limited, fear-based thinking to circulate freely in your closest relationships is to endorse it with your continued presence. You do not have to have dramatic confrontations. You do not have to make speeches about toxic energy. You simply, quietly, strategically begin to limit what you share with people who cannot hold it well. You become more selective about which ideas, which fears, which vulnerabilities you expose to which environments. You become, in Machiavelli's terms, careful with your intelligence, and you begin actively seeking out people who operate from a different baseline. People who solve before they complain, who ask how before they announce why not, who carry an energy of possibility, not because they are naive, but because they have decided to build rather than to explain why building is difficult. Your environment is not a given. It is a choice you keep making every day by deciding who gets close access to your thinking and your energy. Drop this in the comments. My environment is under my control. 6. They are not in denial. They are in a loop, and you keep feeding it. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from being in a relationship with someone who cannot be wrong. You know this exhaustion. It does not come from conflict. It comes from the resolution of conflict, from every conversation where something real needed to be addressed, and somehow by the end, you were the one apologizing, the one who needed to understand better, communicate better, be less sensitive, be more patient. They walked out feeling justified. You walked out confused about what just happened. This is not an accident, and it is not just a personality flaw. It is a pattern that protects them from something they cannot face and destroys everything around them in the process. People without accountability do not experience their actions as causes. They experience them as responses. Everything they do is provoked, justified, understandable given the circumstances, given what you did, given what you said, given who you are. In their internal narrative, they are never the origin of a problem. They are always the responder to one. This means they live in a closed loop. No feedback enters, no learning occurs. The same behaviors repeat indefinitely because there is no mechanism inside them to register the signal that says, "What I am doing is not working and needs to change." You cannot break this loop from the outside. Only they can, and most of them will not. Machiavelli was ruthlessly clear about this. He wrote that he who neglects what is done for what ought to be done sooner affects his ruin than his preservation. People who live inside the story of what ought to be, the story where they are already right, already justified, already the injured party, cut themselves off from reality. And without contact with reality, they cannot adapt. They repeat, they escalate, they find more sophisticated ways to make their behavior your fault. You see this pattern play out with precision. You raise a concern. They counter with a grievance about you, usually from weeks or months ago. The conversation shifts from their behavior to your behavior. You spend the next 30 minutes defending yourself on ground you did not choose. By the end, you are exhausted, they are vindicated, and the original concern has completely disappeared. This is not a coincidence. This is strategy, even if it is unconscious strategy. It works because you keep showing up expecting a fair exchange of accountability. You keep bringing your openness and your willingness to look at yourself. And that openness is used as the terrain on which the conversation is fought. Stop bringing a mirror into a conversation with someone who refuses to look into it. Here is what changes when you stop expecting accountability from people who cannot provide it. You stop being surprised. You stop taking it personally. You stop trying to find the right words, the right moment, the right approach that will finally make them see. Because you understand now that the issue is not your communication, the issue is their architecture. Something in how they are built prevents the honest accounting of their own behavior. And then you make a decision, not dramatically, not with a speech, just a quiet recalibration of what this relationship can provide and what it cannot. A person without accountability can be a colleague, they can be a family member you see at holidays. They might even be a friend in certain limited contexts. What they cannot be is someone you depend on, someone you trust with real vulnerability, someone whose perspective on your behavior you allow to shape how you see yourself. Because a person who cannot acknowledge their own impact has no reliable judgment about yours. Machiavelli placed enormous emphasis on accurate perception of reality as the foundation of all effective action. The ruler who sees clearly, who neither flatters himself nor allows others to flatter him, who receives honest information and acts on it without delay. That is the ruler who survives. The one who surrounds himself with yes people and excuses collapses the moment conditions change. The person without accountability is building their life on that collapsed foundation. And they will pull you into the collapse if you remain too close. Stop explaining. Stop proving. Stop hoping the right conversation will unlock something that their entire history suggests is locked. Change your behavior instead of fighting for a change in theirs. Reduce your investment proportionally to the evidence. Trust the pattern. Not the apology, not the temporary warmth after conflict. The pattern. Because the pattern always tells you the truth. 7. Machiavelli. Expected opposition from those closest to the old order. This is the hardest one to accept, because the people who undermine your success are not strangers. They are almost always the people closest to you, the ones who have known you the longest, the ones who, by every reasonable expectation, should be celebrating alongside you. And yet, you get the promotion, and they find the asterisk. You launch the business, and they highlight the failure statistics. You achieve something you are genuinely proud of, and they manage to make you feel slightly embarrassed about it by the end of the conversation. It is subtle enough that you cannot quite name it, overt enough that you feel it, and confusing enough that you start to wonder if maybe they are right, if maybe you are getting ahead of yourself, if maybe you should scale back your ambition to something that does not create this friction. That is exactly what they need you to do. Not consciously. This is rarely a deliberate strategy, but it is a real psychological process with a specific name. When you succeed, you do not just achieve something for yourself. You inadvertently hold up a mirror. Your success asks a question they have been avoiding. Why not me? That question is painful. And the mind, when faced with painful questions, has two options. Face the question and do something about it, or eliminate the mirror. You are the mirror. And eliminating the mirror is much easier than facing the question. So they find the flaw in your achievement. They warn you about the risks. They compare you to others who tried and failed. They become suddenly very concerned with whether you are being realistic. Not because they want you to fail, because if you fail, the question goes away. The mirror cracks, and they can go back to not having to look. Machiavelli wrote that there is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. He was writing about political power, but the psychology is identical. When you grow, when you change, when you begin to occupy more space in the world than you previously did, you introduce a new order. And new orders disturb the people who were comfortable in the old one. This is especially true with family. Family relationships are built on a fixed story about who everyone is. The responsible one, the reckless one, the quiet one, the smart one, the one who never quite figures it out. These stories have been written for years, sometimes decades. They give everyone in the family a sense of where they stand in relation to everyone else. When you step outside your assigned role, when you succeed beyond what the story allowed for you, you do not just change your own position, you shift everyone else's. The comparisons recalibrate, the internal rankings adjust. And for someone whose sense of worth was tied to the old arrangement, your growth is genuinely threatening, not metaphorically, neurologically. Their nervous system reads your advancement as a loss for them, and they respond accordingly, even if they would never articulate it that way. Understanding this does not make the behavior acceptable, but it does make it explainable. And when you understand the mechanism, you stop taking it as a verdict on your ambitions. Here is what Machiavelli would say to do. Nothing. Not the nothing of passivity, the nothing of absolute refusal to be drawn into the dynamic. You do not defend your success. You do not downplay it to make them comfortable. You do not shrink your vision to fit inside their tolerance for your growth. You continue, quietly, relentlessly, without apology and without announcement. Because the most elegant response to someone who doubts your potential is not an argument. It is the eventual reality of what you build while they were busy doubting. Let me be precise about the 4 forms this undermining takes, because recognizing them is the first move. The backhanded compliment lands like praise, but leaves a small wound. You got the role? I guess they were really looking for someone with your background. It acknowledges the achievement while simultaneously suggesting it required specific circumstances rather than your actual capability. The fear projection dresses itself as concern. Do you know how many people try that and fail? I just want you to be realistic. This is the voice of someone whose own unexplored fears are being projected onto your future. The minimization strips the meaning. Anyone could have done that with the resources you had. It is designed to ensure you do not feel too far above them, too separate, too capable of leaving the old order behind. And the quiet sabotage is the most invisible. The opportunity not mentioned, the introduction not made, the support quietly withheld while the face remains pleasant. You cannot fight any of these directly without looking defensive, which is exactly why Machiavelli would not fight them at all. He would simply observe, adjust access accordingly, and direct his energy where it produces actual results. Your growth is not up for debate. Your dreams do not require their approval to be legitimate. Your ambition does not need to be explained or justified to people who are afraid of what it implies about their own choices. Build, rise. Let the results speak without you having to narrate them. Drop this in the comments. My growth is not up for debate. You did not just watch a video about other people's bad behavior. You watched a video about the rules you have been living by without knowing it. Rules that said, disrespect is acceptable if the relationship matters enough. Manipulation is tolerable if the love is real. Betrayal is forgivable without restructure. Negativity is just personality. Accountability is optional. Undermining is something you adjust yourself around. Those rules are gone now. You are no longer the person who explains why you do not deserve to be treated badly. You are the person who makes treating you badly expensive enough that people reconsider. You are no longer the person who can be held hostage by what someone else holds. You are building what you need from inside yourself. You are no longer the person who stays where they are made small. You stay only where you grow. Machiavelli never asked why the world was difficult. He asked how to move through it with clarity and power intact. That is the invitation of everything we covered today. Not cruelty, clarity, not coldness, strategy, not walls, architecture. He once wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." You have waited long enough. The 7 behaviors end now. Not with a confrontation, with a decision. A quiet, firm, unshakable decision about what you will no longer allow into your life. Drop this final affirmation in the comments. I am no longer available to be used. If this video changed how you see your relationships, hit the like button right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe, because what comes next goes even deeper. This is your moment. Take it.